Hello there, I'm another Magento dev, and in this video I'm going to show you how to replicate from scratch my setup, right down to sort of the command line tools I use. Everything from scratch. This is an Ubuntu Linux laptop that is completely bare, completely threadbare. There's nothing on it. Look, if I do like PHP and even there. Install everything from scratch in the order that I recommend it needs to be installed, and by the end of the video we'll have a working Magento 2 demo store. So we're going right from installation of PHP, mySQL, everything. I ain't even got an IDE on here. So I'm going to go through everything step by step. I'm going to start with installing ZSH because I really like it. It's nice and easy to use. I'm going to install ZSH ASCII and also then myZSH sort of over the top of it. So let's get cracking. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, sudo apt update. Okay, and then I'm going to do install ZSH. Sudo apt install. Obviously, all of this is Googleable. Okay, so next I'm going to have to install curl, because I need curl to get all my ZSH on my system. So great. Now install. Oh, look at that. Git is not installed for it. Now we should be able to run. Yes, I want it to be my default shell. So it's sudo install, and it's PHP, and then whichever version. So I'm going to go for a safe 7.4 for the purposes of this. In order to get my SQL server on, got to have a version of PHP. So I'm going to bang this one on there for now. So remember, I showed you at the beginning of the video, there was no version of PHP at all on this system at the beginning. Right then, okay, so we're going to install some PHP extensions that Magento requires up front. As you go through the Magento installation process, once we get to that point on Composer, if you do get any sort of missing extension errors when Composer tries to install Magento, obviously you can just go through them one by one and install those packages, because obviously this video is based off the versions that I'm installing. You might have slightly different versions for your Magento install, but the process is what we're looking at, and the process is pretty much always the same. So I'm just going to throw this in. I have ran this once, so I probably will get an error on. So the OpenSSL one, because it's already installed, it's not going to install again. But if I just do quickly that, I can see there that it's already installed. So you could, I'll put this command in the list of these in the description of the video just for you to check, but just make sure that you've got these installed at the very least, and you shouldn't have a problem installing Magento. So now we've got, just to triple check, we've got PHP 7.4 installed. So now we're going to go for, or next, we're going to go for installing MySQL. So if we did, we've got nothing. Okay, so we'll go on to that next. Okay, so this one's fairly straightforward, but I mean, it can trip people up. It tripped me up the first time I did one of these laptops. Ended up having to reboot it from the memory stick. I got my SQL versions all in an ass about face, and I just found it easier to run through the second time. But first time it did, I don't know what I did wrong, but I did something wrong, and so hopefully I don't repeat that same mistake now. So we'll go install, and the one you want is MySQL server. Obviously there's some posts out there on the internet. There's one on DigitalOcean which shows you how to, if you just Google the commands for MySQL, install MySQL on Ubuntu 18, I think they say, but obviously, no, 20. Ubuntu 20 is pretty much the one that you'll get on any new, or you should be installing on a new laptop. And this is Ubuntu 20, what I'm running. So we'll just let it install its stuff. There we go. So once that's sort of installed, you've got there. Don't like my command. That's not. I don't think that's the one. I should have ran. That's the one. So notice though, it's version 8. Ubuntu 20, you can't get anything less than version 8. Now this can be a problem, and I think I've touched on it before in one of my other videos. This can be a problem when you're installing new. When you're installing Magentos that have been on a server. The database has been on a server of a lower version. You have to make a change in the SQL file to make it work on 8, and it's a dead simple change, and I will touch on it later once we're installing the Magento. So the next thing you want to be doing is you want to run. This means that we'll be able to get ourselves logged on to MySQL. So sudo MySQL _secure installation. No, we're just gonna have it's only local, so we're just gonna have a real simple password. I normally use root, ROOT. A lot of people do, I think. ROOT. We'll move on anonymous users. I mean, it just don't matter. Root login remotely don't really matter, so we'll just buzz through these. Remove the test database and access to it. Yeah, we'll get rid of the test database. Reload privileges table now. Yes. All done. So it says. So now we should be able to log into SQL. So now we can actually log into MySQL using sudo command. But I'll just show you first, we haven't got a user yet. So you would, try that. It's not going to work. Okay, so we need to set this user up. So we want a root user so we can install Magento, because we need some details to put in an M file. But we can log into MySQL using our sudo command. And there we go. So we'll just have a quick look. There we are. So let's create that user. Okay, so I'd say the first thing you want to do is just check that you haven't already got a root user. I might have created one inadvertently. So yeah, I've got a root user. So obviously you can't recreate a user that already exists, but we should be able to alter this root user and assign it a password that's useful to us. This is the bit that's tripped me up in the past. I've been trying to create a user that already exists. I want to use root for convenience. Could set up any other user, to be honest, any other name, admin or whatever, but I do like to keep it clean and use root, so I'm going to persevere with this. Cool. Right. So to again, just to recap, to check current users and the hosts. We've got root at localhost, and we're all good. So let's just test that out. So I'll set up a user, root at localhost with the password root, and I'm going to be able to use that further down the line when I'm installing my Magento. So that's basically SQL setup. So next thing we're going to do is install Valet Linux Plus. If you go to valetlinux.plus, basically we're just going to follow these instructions and get it all in there. So we're going to first just bang this in here, let that run its stuff. Okay, that's done as quick as you like. So we've already got PHP 7.4, so it's definitely going to be supported. nginx, right, so we'll just this bad boy. Lovely. And then we'll do okay. And then the next step is sort of basically the installation. So now, and this is something that we're going to need, is we need Composer. And we need okay, so I use this guide for Composer. It's a little bit more broken down than the one on the official site, which can be a little bit confusing. So we'll just move that back to Valet and we'll come back to that. So let's install Composer. So first of all, we're already in. I've already installed PHP CLI as far as I can remember. I suppose I could run this again. Certain. Okay, you can never be too careful, I suppose. Okay, so we're already in the this little directory here, so we will run the cal command. Right, that's that. So now, the next step by step. This is just on Lotion, so it's install Composer on Ubuntu 2020. So it's worth just following it through. There we go. It's all looking good so far. I would expect it. And there's a PHP command. Copy that. Right there. Install the verified. Lovely. So far, so good. Install directory. For this is obviously to use Composer globally, which we want to do. We're going to be using it a lot for Magento 2. Okay, lovely stuff. Now, lovely. There we are. Composer version 2, which is now supported 2.4.3 onwards. So we're good on that. You can actually change versions of Composer. You'll have to Google that if you're running older versions of Magento on your Ubuntu on Ubuntu. You will obviously have to downgrade to 1, but it's fairly straightforward. But we're going to persevere with version 2. So there we go. We've got Composer all installed. Okay, so next we're going to install Valet using Composer. So we're just going to run Composer global require and then the Valet package. Okay, that's all done. That's what it looks like. Composer package install. Cool. So next. Okay, so this next bit illustrates perfectly why videos are good for this, because the docs aren't quite working for me. It says to put an export path into my bash profile. Obviously, I'm not using bash, I'm using ZSH, but even then, I've had to change mine, because if I have a look on my version, my composer is actually within config, right? And that's where Valet is there. So if I'd have ran Valet install without putting this in, it would have been command not found. Right? Now it's gonna do it. So I'm gonna install Valet. Looks like mySQL is already installed. Please enter the password. Lovely. Right. So we're up and running. Okay, so quickly before we move on to the next step, just to recap that bit. I went in, you could have done it in bash RC, but I went into ZHRC here and I added that path there just down the bottom. So I've added in config, whereas these docs on this site, which are brilliant, but just be aware, just double check where where Valet actually got installed from here. It'll be somewhere around there. Okie dokie. Okay, so let's get some more stuff configured. So I like to have my sites in a sort of a root folder called sites. So, and the key thing is to tell Valet that sites is your root, and you do that by doing Valet pack. There we go. So the directory has been added to Valet's paths. Okay, and then the next thing I always do when I'm doing a fresh install is I create a sort of a test site. So so make a directory, call it Adam. There it is. And then there's a real sort of easy way of doing it here. Look, so you paste this into your terminal. Oh, I don't. Silly Billy didn't CD into it, did I? Paste this in. It will create me a index file. Then I should be able to go to that in my web browser. So it saves all your sites on .test. Right, and make sure we started up. There we go. So I need to start up. I forgot to start. So that's great. So it pinged straight in. Beautiful. Right, just notice there, not secure. Right, Valet does allow for secure connections, and it's dead simple to do. So I always like to just jump out of here because you don't want to do the wrong one. And then you do Valet secure, and then restarts everything. Then Firefox will probably complain about it, but it hasn't. Firefox is happy with that. So I've got myself a secure setup, but now let's go one step further. Let's get Magento installed on here. I like an interface for administering my local databases, because you do a lot of testing in databases, a lot of fiddling, and I can't be asked to do that all on command line. So we'll use something for local database testing called adminer. You've probably heard of it. It's just a PHP file that you can download from the internet. And the reason I'm not using phpMyAdmin is because phpMyAdmin requires Apache, and I haven't got Apache running on this. I don't want it. I get too many conflicts. I don't need it. You don't need it for Magento. You can run absolutely fine Magento, WordPress, whatever you want to run. You can run it on nginx. So this is what I do. utilize Valet. So first of all, adminer. It pretty much has all the same functionality as we'll get the latest one. Same functionality as phpMyAdmin. I've never sort of had any problems. So basically, what I would do is I would create a site, call it mySQL admin maybe. Yeah, cd into it just to check, actually just to check it's there. Okay, I'll also Valet secure it. Okay, right, and so now I'm going to move this file, which is like, it's a one file application, it's dead easy to use. I'm going to move this file into, where is it? Sites, MySQL admin. I'm just going to pop this in there, right? But I'm going to just change its name to index. Right, and now if I go to mySQL test, got myself an interface, and I can access this, my root, and root. And we can actually create databases in here, but we don't have to. So I'll tell you what, we'll install, we've pretty much got everything to install the Magento 2.4.3 now. If you've skipped to this point because you just wanted to see how to install Magento 2.3, then welcome. You've missed an absolute rollercoaster of a ride. But we'll come back after this short break for install of Magento 2. I always use this quick start for install. This is what you want to be going off. So we're going to install open source. So we can actually just copy this and then can leave out the directory name bit because we'll create one. So if you're doing it from outside your directory, obviously you can type in, you can put something like this, and then Magento 2, for example, as the folder name. Now the directory that you choose, it does have to be empty. So if you was in a directory, and you could use like, period or dot, as we say in England, you could use full stop, and that'll install into that directory, but it does have to be empty. So if you've already like installed Git or something in there, Magento is going to kick off. So it's got to be a brand new directory. So we're going to call ours Magento, and we're going to fire it off. Now, these details, these credentials are from your Magento account. We'll store them. And away it goes. We'll go. There's Magento as we know and love it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install Magento now. I've just copied and pasted this off the docs. Best thing to do, paste it into a text editor, and then make the changes that you need. So ours are going to be sort of, because I've created a folder called Magento. Valet will use Magento as the main, basically the test domain, and they always default to test. I'm going to be using localhost, obviously, and then our database credentials are root and root, and then that's the database name, which we'll probably just call Magento, and root, and then creating the admin user, which is absolutely fine for the purposes of this, but you might want to just change your credentials. I'm going to change this to engv, and I'm going to get rid of these because I don't necessarily need those for the purposes of this. Okay, so that's all ready to go, but first we need to create a database. Now we can use Valet to do this, but I'm going to show you and Valet is pretty simple to do. Where is it? Databases. There you can create a database with Valet DB create in the name. So we'll go Valet DB create and then Magento. Brilliant. Now, you could have created that in MySQL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you it exists a couple of places. So it's just a way to test. So you can log into MySQL as your root user, and then you could do show databases. We've got Magento, it's in there, and also we can see that the database exists. So now I'm just going to exit from. But you could have ran in there. You could have ran database create Magento. So there's plenty of ways to do it. Right in. I'm just going to throw this into my root and run the install. Right, it's giving me an error, BC Math, missing extension. Now, we have installed it, or at least I thought I'd installed it. So let's just try this again. Might need to do. Okay. So if this makes a difference, I'll just run that again. This can take a little while. What a schoolboy error. Look at that. All this, and I forgot about Elasticsearch, our friend. So the install actually went through quite successfully, but then got to Elasticsearch and it isn't present on the system. So let's install it. And this is how you get it. So first of all, up. Okay. Okay. Elasticsearch in there. Dead easy. So to check it's running, it's not. Okay, and we're up and running. So now I'll be able to install Magento properly. Okay, so as you can see, we're installed, and that's my admin URL that's generated for me. We can now point Valet to our Magento install. So what we'll do is we expect it to appear at magento.test, right? But it's not secure. Okay, so what we'll do is, and we're getting a 502 error, which I'll need to look at, and we've got to make some nginx changes to get this working as well. So, but first of all, I'll just drop out of this folder, and I'll do Valet secure Magento and go. So now I should be able to. It's secure, but we're getting the bad gateway. Yeah. So we'll sort this out. Okay, in order to resolve this, what you want to do is you want to nano into your nginx config, or basically access it. You can buy it or whatever you want to do. And in the section where you've got HTTP, you need to increase the buffers. So just at the bottom here, I'm going to paste in this stuff. Save that file. I always like to just check it, so I'm just going to jump back into it and make sure that it all saved. All there. Okay, so I went and installed VS Code, so we can start having a look and debugging our Magento. So the easy way to get started is code period, or code dot as we say in England. I'll open up the terminal, it'll open up the VS Code the first time I've used it, so I'll just trust authors. Okay, so here's our Magento. So we've just installed it, we've got our env with all the various details in it for database, etc. What I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to put this in developer mode. I can make that change in here, or I could do it in on command line and set the mode there. But I'm just going to make the change in there, so it's now in developer mode, and that means that I should now be able to bin Magento S1 setup upgrade. Now this will fail if Elasticsearch isn't running. Elasticsearch should still be running. And I've been through this in other videos, but what this command does is it clears everything down, clears all the generated code folder, and it rebuilds everything. Apart from it doesn't rebuild static content. That's what we're going to do next. So you notice that was pretty quick. That was in real time. I didn't stop the video. We're going to now run because we're in developer mode, we need to run di compile. Now I found out recently that you don't need to run di compile in production. If you run setup upgrade and then run static content, it pretty much builds all the folders that you need to run Magento in production. But because this is developer mode, I always like to run this. It's difficult to say whether it's fully necessary or not, but I just like to make sure that everything's there and static content doesn't miss anything, particularly as you're working on the front end. Sometimes with gulp and things can refresh, because in developer mode all your static content actually refreshes when you reload the page, so it can be a bit dangerous sometimes if you're working on a site and compiling a site. Things can get overwritten, and you might not be aware of it. So I like to run all these things separately and then access my front end. So that's di compile run. Again, pretty quick. Couple of flags. GB. Now there's a problem with that because this is one way that I just wanted to double check I was in developer mode, and as you can see I am. And in developer mode you have to force static content, and that's because it does refresh on reload as well. So it's just a good way to test that you're in the right, that your M's in the right mode. Now what this is doing is it's building out all your static content. Look, and okay, so you might have noticed when I installed Magento that I made a mistake. I made a mistake on purpose, obviously, for the purposes of this video, to show people how to get around this problem and how important a particular setting is. Now, what I'd done is I'd removed, by mistake, the URL rewrite, the use rewrite set to 1 upon install. Like I deleted the bottom 3 because there was like Americanized things, and I didn't notice that I was getting rid of use rewrites, to be honest. But it is salvageable. So obviously you can't run this again. You don't want to run this again because Magento's already installed. But you see, I'm trying to go to the admin here, and I'm getting a 404. I am on any other sort of inner pages. They'll all just redirect into the home page. And that's because web server rewrites is switched off. But actually on install, it's not even a setting that's configured. So what you do on that, in that occasion, is you can set it by using these commands, config commands, which are really, really useful. So I've just switched it on and off again to show you. But so if I want to switch them back on, Simply do that. And this is the setting here. Look, that by running that command, it adds this line to the database, and this should now resolve all pages. Oop, I might just need to give it a quick refresh. Get rid of cookies. We'll just try and go to the admin. There we go. It's all working. So I believe our password was admin and admin123. Two-factor auth is enabled. So this is very annoying locally. So we'll get rid of this, and I'll show you how. Obviously, I'm not advising you get rid of two-factor authentication altogether, because it's going to be very useful once it's in production, but you can switch it on then. So the easiest way to do it is to just find the two-factor auth, enter module disabled. We'll go to disabled. Just give this a refresh. Great, I'm in. So I've just disabled it for now, and you can see that's 10 to a 0. Allow Adobe to collect usage data to improve user experience. I'm sure that's exactly what they're doing with the usage data. Don't allow. Install Magento, we're away. As you can see, we've got 243p1. And everything's sort of here up and above board. Great, I hope that's been useful.